Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Trevor Dickerson, the marketing manager here at Terazo. Really happy you decided to join us here today for our monthly webinar, Build and Launch a Remote Contact Center. We're going to talk through Twilio Flex and some of the trends we've been seeing as folks have pivoted through these crazy times in 2020 during the pandemic. Kind of show you how you can take what was a traditionally in-person experience and create a virtual cloud experience with your contact centers, client and customer communications, and do that all really smoothly and easily using the Twilio Flex platform. We have a couple of our folks here today to walk you through it and answer your questions, and I wanted to go ahead and introduce them. I did want to say, first of all, that we are going to record this presentation today. So if you have a question for our Q&A at the end that you'd like to ask offline, that's totally cool. We're happy to stop the recording and take questions after that. We just want to put that out there and let you know this is being recorded for later use, and will be posted on our YouTube page, and we'll send it out afterwards in our email communications as well. So a little bit about Terazo. We're a solutions-oriented, platform-centric software and managed services firm based in Richmond, Virginia. We also have offices in Durham and Charlotte, North Carolina. We offer integration automation services that clients large and small use to run more efficiently and realize new business value. And our growing company was founded in 2016, and we are a Twilio certified partner, and we support mission-critical platforms, applications, and online services for customers in a wide variety of fields. And you can check us out at terazo.com. And also want to encourage you to check out our Twilio landing page, which really kind of takes a deep dive on some of what we'll talk about here today with our Twilio products and solutions, customer-facing solutions there. So that's terazo.com/Twilio, and we'll send that out in the email link along with the video recording as well. With that said, I wanted to introduce our speakers we're going to have here today. We have Chris Bussey, who's our Chief Digital Officer here at Terazo. He focuses on our partnership relationships and helping clients apply product management thinking to their API platforms. Before helping launch Terazo in 2016, he led the API consumer services team for Capital One Dev Exchange, their platform there, supporting internal and external business partners while supporting or developing new product intent for its API product backlog. We also have Miles Phillips, who's our engagement lead here at Terazo. He helps customers solve their most pressing business problems here. He helps them run customer engagements, assists them in utilizing Twilio to solve their communications challenges, and engineers creative solutions to solve their business problems and technological challenges. His career in IT spans more than 20 years, and he has a wealth of experience in IT management, software development, and product management. His hobbies include hiking, kayaking, and gaming. So with that, I want to go ahead and turn things over to Chris Bussey to start us off, and then Miles will take us through a demo.
Thank you for the introduction, Trevor. Appreciate it. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Bussey. And I'm not going to show too many slides because I think the most interesting part of these webinars is often the demo. But I did want to introduce a couple of concepts that you'll see in the demo just so we can kind of level set there. So firstly, this is about building a remote contact center in under 30 days. So let's say, what is a remote contact center? I think there's a lot of different SaaS and cloud-based software solutions out there for contact centers. But I think historically, you think of a lot of people with headsets and small desks in a big room or a building full of big rooms when you think of contact center. With SaaS cloud-based software now, we have the opportunity to really make those contact center agents be location independent. And this has only, become more true now that COVID-19 has accelerated the trend. And so we see this trend accelerating both for the businesses where it's hard to have people together in one office for many reasons, but it's also really shifted consumer behavior. And that's where this kind of omni-channel communication happens, right? So, I still catch myself using the term call center because I've been doing IT for 20 plus years, and there was a time where it was just call center. But really the shifts in consumer behavior have gone to text, web chat, Facebook chat, WhatsApp, if you're looking at an international audience. And so if you really think of contact center and remote, it's really all these things come together. And so we're talking about Twilio today, but we're also going to talk about patterns and approaches to these things. And Twilio portfolio of products is vast, and we're not going to get into all of it. And we're not going to go deep into these particularly, but these are the things that you're going to see used in the demo when Miles comes on in a moment, right? So we've got the channel APIs, right? You've got programmable voice, text, it says chant there. I think sometimes it could be customers chanting at you, but that should be chat. And then programmable video, which is one that we're seeing more and more when customers have high bandwidth or we have very specific use cases, which Miles will talk about. The Twilio Studio helps you build flows. The task router is about skills-based routing. It also has certain escalation and fallback rules that can be built into that. Flex is what we're going to see visibly, right? That's that agent user interface and user experience framework. It also provides a lot of analytics. And then we're going to see some examples from React.js modules, which is really that custom agent UI that you build that helps you link to enterprise CRMs or API integrations. I want to take a moment and just have us think a little bit about that agent UI UX, because if you've been around contact centers or more legacy call centers, there's all kinds of horror stories about just how many different screens an agent needs to switch between to provide that customer experience. And sometimes it's that almost invisible bridge over the phone where it's just this user experience that you don't see, that's created by the frustration the agent feels with a clunky set of apps and UIs that they have to use and being stuck to a particular flow that the customers have to go through. And what we're seeing in these modern contact centers and the work that we're doing with our clients is really getting very context aware, context sensitive, so that you're creating a great user experience for the agent that then translates into that intangible great user experience for the customer. And I think this is really, really important to think, because we like to, as technologists and business people, we talk about the APIs, we talk about the cloud, the SaaS. But at the end of the day, some contact centers handle relatively benign interactions, but some handle very high stress situations, such as insurance claims for damaged property, telehealth scenarios, or even mental health crises. And so if we really think and tune in, like, how can we build the best user experience for the agent, and that also translates into the customer and the audience, that's just a win-win for everyone. So to talk real quick about some of these terms here, we mentioned the channels, right? That is that user interface, right? The channels in omni-channel. And so I think of the demo today, we'll see something that's a web chat, because that's easiest to show in this webinar format, where we're not trying to zoom a phone in on the screen. But like I mentioned earlier, we're seeing video more and more, and Miles will mention that a little bit. I'm not going to go into big details on these screens, but just keeping in mind that as we talk about some of the Twilio products here, that the task router and studio really help orchestrate a lot of these channels. And as we're talking about how to build a contact center quickly, one of the things that's really interesting is a lot of this is just a drag and drop interface or specific forms that you fill out. And a lot of that then means that the build of these things can be handled by a non-developer, which either lets you get to a minimum viable product or a proof of concept without having to get a dev team funded, and or lets you really let your developers focus on the core CRM and API integrations, while you may have more power users or domain experts who can build out a lot of these flows and manage the different queues and things like that. And so this is a screenshot that I like to use. It's kind of pulled from the Twilio developer documentation, but it's to kind of ground our bearings and what we're going to see in the Flex user interface. So we have the tasks that come in on the left-hand column there. In the middle column, we have the actual engagement with the customer. And in the darker right-hand column there, we have a wireframe suggestion of where CRM and React.js customizations may be implemented. So this is just to kind of ground kind of what we're going to see and what Miles is going to go through here in his demo in a moment. And speaking of such, I'll go ahead and release us from the PowerPoint here and stop my share and let Miles take over for the demo.
All right, thank you very much, Chris. Like I said, my name is Miles Phillips, and I'm going to walk us through a demonstration of getting Flex up and running just real quick. So bear with me, let me get my screen started. And before we get started, what I will say, we are going to be doing most of this live on the fly. This is going to be a real life demo, so we'll see how this goes. Hopefully all this comes together pretty nicely. What we're going to start with is we're going to start with a Twilio account that has Flex provision, but we've done very little else. So I'm going to walk you through how do we set up our agents, how do we set up skills and assign skills to those agents so that we know that when the agent gets a request, that's something they're capable of handling. We're going to talk through how do you set up those queues of agents within Flex as well. We're going to show off what a chat looks like coming from a sample website coming into Flex, and how we can use what's called a pre-engagement form to go ahead and make sure we route that chat to exactly where it's supposed to go. And then we're going to tie it back together within Flex, and we're going to show how to route those incoming requests into those correct queues. And as Chris said, we're going to show off a demo of some small customization where in one queue we are going to load in a custom website within the CRM pane so that you can start getting some ideas of what we can do here. So that's an overview of what we're going to do. And let's go ahead and get started. We're going to come in and we're going to come into the Flex interface. This is what the Flex administration panel looks like when you first come into it. And we're going to come in and we're going to start with skills. So we're going to have a sample shop that we're going to be basically a card trading company where we buy and sell baseball cards, basketball cards, football cards. And we're going to have a live chat where customers can come in and ask questions, or for example, you have this card or I can't find this card. And that will be a customer service type request. But then we're also going to set up a technical support queue. For example, I'm trying to place an order and it's just not working. So we can have two different groups of people that can answer these calls. So to come in and do this is pretty straightforward. So we're going to start with the customer queue. And this is going to be where we route our customer service request to. So I can just add it. And now I have a queue for I have a skill for customer service for my agents. The next one I'm going to set up is I'm going to set up that technical support queue we talked about. And I want to dive in and talk a little bit more about the options of setting up skills. For the purpose of today's demonstration, we're just going to use these two skills, and we're not going to put a lot of granularity in them. But when you think technical support, a lot of times you might have level 1 support, level 2 support, level 3 support, where they handle increasingly difficult tasks. And Flex does give you the option of having skills for these, having skill levels associated with these. We're not going to use that today, but just as we're thinking about setting this up in the future, I did want to call that out here. Okay, so at this point now we have a customer skill and a technical skill. And the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and assign those skills. So for when you go through your different agents, it's as simple as pulling up the agent you want and assigning or removing skills. So I'm gonna start from scratch here. I can say, I want to add my customer skill, and then I want to add my technical support skill. And now, at this point, this agent will have both these skills, and they'll be able to take chat requests for both the technical support issues or the customer issues. And a little later on, we'll play with toggling these on and off and see what it looks like within Flex. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come into Flex Task Router, and we're going to set up the task queues that are going to be used in this process. And what task queues are for is, it's how you segment the work and the assignments to the different people. So we're going to say we have this queue of people that are going to handle the technical support, and we have this queue of people that are going to assign the customer service. And these task queues are how you set up those workers into these queues so they can take work. So I will come into the workspace we're going to use, and I'll come into task queues. And we're going to do a pretty similar thing. We're going to add in a technical support queue. And then we'll add a customer queue. So a couple things to talk about here is Flex does try to give you options for how you handle the work. By default, the first task that comes into the service is going to be the first one that gets assignment back out, but you can do last and first out, and you have some different options there. And another thing I'm going to talk about is the concept of max reserved workers. Flex is based on a task and reservation system, which means an incoming chat, an incoming phone call, anything like that comes in, and then it attempts to match and find a worker or set of workers who can do that task. Your choice is you can have the reservation go out to one worker at a time, which means it tries to find a specific worker and see if give that worker the option to accept the task, and just go from one worker to another worker if you'd like. Or you have the concept of being able to set a larger number of workers, where a task comes in and like you want to let 5 people know about the task, and the first person that accepts the task gets the task. This is helpful, especially if you're dealing with call centers or whatnot, where you're having inbound calls and you want the first person to get to it when you're thinking about hold times. For today's demo, we're just going to make one reservation at a time, but that is there if you want to just work on making it so the first agent gets it. Then the last thing we need to set up is we need to set up who should be a member of this queue. And who we want to be a member of this queue is actually everyone who has the technical skill. So if we come back into Flex, they actually give us with the skills what we need to do to set up the routing. So all we have to do is we can grab what they've already given us and come in to here and just apply that. And what it's going to do now is, all right, I don't seem to have the save here. That's okay. There. All right, sorry about that. All right. All right. And then I have now set up this task queue. And what it will go ahead and do for you is it will show you the workers that will currently be assigned to this queue. So you can have an idea of what's going on. If I want to make this something we don't have set up, like billing, you can go and see at that point, this queue you're going to set up does not have any matching agents. So any work that goes here will just never get routed. So we'll put this back to technical. And you'll see, okay, great, it's working. Now we'll go through and set up the customer support queue as well. And then we'll come back here for the routing and just grab the routing has customer. And we'll put that in. And once we save that, we will again see that we do have an agent. When you see in any of these spots where it says 1 = 1, that's Twilio's shorthand way of just saying everyone. So everyone who's available should be a part of this queue. There are use cases for that, but for our demo today, that's not what we're working through. All right, so the next thing I want to do is, let me show you that we've put together basically a little sample app. And this represents our business, our customer website, where our customers are going to come in and say, I have my questions. So within this sample website, we've gone ahead and embedded the Twilio Chat SDK. And within that, we've used what Flex calls a pre-engagement form to go ahead and ask for a little bit of information before the user comes into the chat session. And this is all just configuration based. You'd say the type of field you want and the values for these fields, and it just automatically is there, and it will automatically be passed into your Flex for you, into your Twilio Studio for you. So we'll go ahead and get, just to show you, like if I was gonna say miles, and then again, we've talked about I want customer service or technical support. We're not gonna go ahead and start a chat request yet because we still have a little more setup to do. But I just wanted to call that out and so you can see the context for what we're doing here. Next up, we need to come back into Twilio and we're going to update the studio flow for an incoming chat request. And this is a chat flow that is just created by default when you stand up your Flex project. And basically by default, what this is saying is when I get an incoming chat request, I am going to go ahead and just send this directly into Flex with no routing or anything. At this point, the default behavior would be you'd have a chat and it'd just get routed to every agent. We're going to go ahead and update this though to add in the data from that pre-engagement form where we are grabbing and we had what department do you want to route? We are going to go ahead and add that in here. So bear with me 1 second. So what we're going to do here is, we're going to we put in the skills needed and we're able to grab the fields from the pre-engagement data. So you can say pre-engagement data department and go ahead and save that and publish that in. So what this is doing now is when we send in that chat request, the Reflex is also going to get another field within the request, the skills needed. And within that skills needed, we're going to pass in either customer or we're going to pass in technical. And that's going to be what helps us route the request to the appropriate person. All right. And now, next thing we do is we get to go back into Task Router and we're actually going to set all that up. So we come into our Flex workspace and then we have what's called our workflow. And our workflow takes the incoming requests and lets us route those requests to various departments or whatever we need to do. And this is where we're going to go ahead and set up our skills-based routing. Right now with how it's set up, if a request comes in, it's automatically just going to send it to our queue that has everyone in it. And that's not really what we want. So let's customize this a little bit. To customize this, we can add in filters to add in additional routing. So let's start with our customer support. So we're going to give this a nice label, customer support. And then again, 1 = 1, which is everything should route this way. But we're going to change this to go ahead and look at the skills needed. So if we're going to do customer support, we can say skills needed equals customer. And again, we're just getting that based off of that field that we injected into the Twilio Studio flow, where we are passing the skills needed from the chat request. So we're going to say any task comes in with the customer skill needed, and then we get to decide who it's going to be assigned to. In this case, we want to assign it to the customer support queue, any available worker, and you have some options for customizing. You know, what worker do you want to select? You know, how do you want to go about selecting them? By default, Flex is going to go ahead and give this task to the person who's been idle the longest. You also get to set a timeout if you want for how long should they have to accept that request before it moves on. And you also have the ability of setting some priority for routing. So if some incoming chats are more important than others, then you might set a priority. We've done work for Hospital Network where in their use case, they had the concept of like a physician's line. So if a doctor called in, they could put a special code in the IVR and they got priority support ahead of everyone else. So by setting the priority, we're able to say, if calls come in this way, answer these ahead of all others. So that's one potential use for the use case. All right, so we're going to, that's our customer support one. And now we need to go ahead and add in our option for technical support. So we're going to do something very, very, very similar here. We'll go ahead and update the label for technical support. And then, all right, let's expand back out. And again, we need to set up what tasks are going to get routed to this. So again, skills needed equals technical. All right. Again, it's actually defaulting the customer service queue, so that's not what we want. So we will tell it to go to technical support, and we don't need to do anything in there. And in the situation we're using here, we're not going to have a default queue, so we will just go ahead and set that to none. And what we've done here now is set it up so if a chat comes in with technical support, it will land in the technical support routing and go to the technical support queue. If it's customer service or customer support, it will come into the customer queue. And then that will assign workers the task based on what we set up in these queues up here. Now, the last thing we're going to touch on really lightly is within the Flex panel, you see the CRM configured view. And what this is an open pane where you can pull in your existing system, like maybe your Salesforce, maybe your ServiceNow, or maybe a homegrown system where you can pull in content and load information specific to that customer. So maybe it's their customer record, maybe it's their list of orders, but that's something the CRM window can be configured to use. In our use case here, if we come in with a customer request, we are actually going to load in a version of this card site where we can kind of search and look up some information for them. And then if we do the technical support queue, we don't have a CRM configured. So I'm just going to use this as a demo to kind of illustrate, how this can work with it set up or without it set up. But that being said, we should have everything set up so that we are ready to attempt to take a chat. So what we're going to do is we'll start with a technical support chat, and we should see that come in and go to our technical support queue. All right, now we're within the Twilio Chat SDK. I can say, I can't seem to get my order placed. Can you help me? All right, now the moment of truth. Ah, great, it seems like it's working. We have our chat request coming in from Miles, and now I'm the agent, and I'm going to go ahead and take this request. And great, I see the request here. And if we come over to the info panel real quick, we can see that it did come in for the technical support, and this is a web chat, and then I can go ahead and interact with my person. Sure. Oh, here's our famous question from our web developer days. What version of Internet Explorer are you using? Now you can see my history in web development. And then you can see the chat just goes back and forth, and we're interacting with them from Flex. All right. Now I'm going to assume that I've gone ahead and resolved the issue, and I can end the chat. And once you end the chat, you have the concept of a wrap-up stage where you can do whatever else you need to wrap up the task, and you can mark it complete. All right. Next up, let's try this again, but let's say I want some help with something, Miles, and this time I want to talk to customer service. All right. Oops, I don't have a chat. So let's see what's going on here. Let's first out. Oh, you know what? Let's see. I actually need to say, what can we help you with? Hi. So now I put in my request. Okay. Now we'll come over here and there, I do have my request now. And now the difference you see is I actually have a different view. So I've actually loaded in our reference website so where I can actually work on helping the customer with their request. So in this case, I can do the same thing and say, oh, there we go. Ryan Sandberg, let's see what sets do I have. And I can say, I'm sorry, but we do not have his 1983 rookie card. And that's how that goes. And then just a couple other things, like I told you, we'd play around with the task assignments. Let's just pretend we have a situation where maybe I don't have an agent with the skill. So let's go ahead and take customer off here. And well, yeah, and what we'll see now is I have nobody online with that skill. So let's see what happens when we start our chat. Okay, and what you're going to see now is I'm logged in, but because I do not have that customer skill anymore, the task does not route to me. So what would the task would route to someone else who does have that skill. And that's kind of a wrap for the demo purposes. What I was hoping to do here is show you how we can set up a Flex environment really quick in 20 to 30 minutes. We can set up some basic groups like a customer support, technical support group, and we can walk through how do we route those incoming requests to the specific groups. This would work very similarly whether we're doing web chat, SMS, or we're doing phone calls. The same concepts generally apply to all the channels. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Miles. That was very interesting. You know, so as someone who doesn't work directly in especially the task router and studio stuff, I learned a couple things there. I'm curious, you know, we called this webinar building a contact center, remote contact center in under 30 days. And what you accomplished there with some basic flow was less than 30 minutes, which is pretty awesome to see. What do our projects tend to look like over the next 30 days, you know, whether we're doing agile and it's a couple of sprints, and especially like what kind of, I guess, outcomes are people getting in the early stage of these kind of things, you know, after 30 days or after that initial build?
Okay, that's a great question, Chris. So what I talked about here today was just, you know, how you get something up and running really fast and get something workable. You know, Twilio has seen some of these things get implemented a day or two into production mode. What we've seen with our customers is they really embrace the power and the customability of Flex. That's when you work with Twilio Flex, that's something you really get, where you get to build out a system that does exactly what you want it to do, versus something like other traditional SaaS products where you might just be stuck with the processes they have. And we've seen our customers do a wide range of things. We have a healthcare system customer that I referenced earlier, and they've actually taken Twilio Flex and embedded it within their ServiceNow instance. So instead of coming to Flex, they log into ServiceNow and go and work through it. And they're able to pull up all their incidents, their support requests, and everything work directly within the ServiceNow platform. Another one of our really interesting use cases was we worked with a big national testing center who proctors exams. And we built out an experience using Flex, Twilio Programmable Chat, and Twilio Video, where we built out a virtual proctoring experience. So when you come in here and you have this task view, instead of just having one task in a CRM window, they actually get to proctor up to 8, 9, 10 exams at one time. So they have Twilio video screens loading up in this task panel, and they get to click on those and interact with those and passing through the whole proctor lifecycle, from the concept of, hey, I'm just checking in, I want to make sure I have everything, to proctoring the exam, to reviewing problems. So that's the neat thing about Flex is there's no limit to where you can go with it.
Yeah. So that kind of actually dovetails nicely into a question that Sujith in the audience in the chat asked. And I'm gonna ask it, but I'm also gonna reframe it because you touched on part of it too, and I want to bring kind of the two concepts together. So Sujith asks, are there any advantages to using a web chat with Twilio Flex like you show versus something more out of the box like intercom? And so I think that represents, there's sort of maybe a perceived competition of like out of the box to the highly customizable by Flex. I think a lot of times we've seen instances where maybe there's an incumbent contact center software that we're displacing because of the customization. And I think that's what you were talking to a little bit. But can you talk a little bit about kind of maybe that maturity model of a web chat or a channel chat, and when somebody might, you know, look at intercom.io versus Flex or the Twilio suite there?
Yeah, and I want to take this question. I'm gonna morph it just a little bit more too. But to that point, you use Twilio. A good use for programmable chat is when you're embedding this into another bigger, larger solution, or the Twilio chat does not, or the intercom IO or whatever just doesn't have the functionality you need. For example, when we go back to when we're talking about this test provider we worked through, they use the chat as an interface to bridge across the whole experience, you know, going from checking into the exam, passing it on to the proctor experience. And so chat is the universal communication across that whole process versus just the standalone chat on its end. And, you know, that I'm going to expand a little bit. And that's what's to be said in a lot of cases for the Twilio product as a whole. You know, Twilio's tagline is, we can't wait to see what you build, because they've built out this platform, this system of APIs that give you not quite unlimited, virtually unlimited, you know, capabilities, and you know, what can you dream that it can do?
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think, so another question from Sujith here, and I'm going to add on to this also because I was having my next question in my head too. So Sujith asks, is there a way to integrate customer or application specific data into the chat flow? And I'd love to hear the answer to that. Of course, Sujith would too, but also you showed kind of bringing up the baseball card database in the frame there. Can you go also into kind of what are the deeper application hooks for chat flow, that frame, kind of how can we flow things back and forth there?
Okay, great. So starting with Sudh's question, one of the neat things about the programmable chat is the concept of webhooks. And for the programmable chat, you can just chat. You have the concept of webhooks where you can intercept the data, and add custom data in and respond to things. You can also do things like hook up Autopilot, which is Twilio's you know, machine learning, like chatbot type application. We're actually looking at a scenario now where we're doing something similar to that, where, you know, the concept is the customer has an issue, we'll use Autopilot to go through and try to solve the issue in an automated fashion. And if for whatever reason, you know, the bot can't handle the issue, the bot can exit out of the chat and hand it back to a user. And then, Chris, to your point, when we're talking about, you know, we implemented the hook for the baseball screen into our Flex example, but we can do far more with that, do a lot more. Flex is based on this concept of tasks. And we touched briefly on the tasks when we were in the studio flow, where I came in and said, let me add this piece of information we grabbed from the pre-engagement form, and let's go ahead and put that into the task. Well, that's one way you can do that, but you can also gather other information. So for example, based on the phone number, you can look up the customer, make an API call, look up the customer, and embed additional information to the customer. Within that task info panel, you can look up and populate anything else in there. And we also see customers just build a complete interface from scratch. You know, when we're talking about that test proctor experience, that's one example of that, where we took this whole Flex panel and just blew it up and just integrated all their own custom stuff. You know, the concept of, instead of seeing just a list of tasks in the task panel, you see videos. You know, for example, within that CRM panel, then you may see things like all the past order history, you know, and have this full workable application within this. At the end of the day, Flex is a React application, and you can, with their plugin architecture, you can, inject your own containers, override functionality. This really becomes your own application. Do with what you want.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah. And so Sujith asks, does Flex support the ability to search and retrieve chat history? And I will piggyback onto that as well. If you can speak a little bit to, like, one of the positive feedbacks I know we get when we've been replacing some incumbent contact center solutions is how it handles context between those. Like you mentioned, the IVR handoff. So kind of how can the agent see historical things, and then also as we switch through channels and that customer experience as they move on us there, how does that context follow them?
So yeah, so you have the ability, Twilio will store that, whether it's chat or SMS, kind of that chat history. So you do have the ability to kind of retrieve and pull that data back in. And one of the things when you're dealing with, that kind of like the omni-channel or like the autopilot thing we're talking about, where you start a conversation in one channel, like an autopilot, and it comes in and switches over to the user, you're able to see and pull in that full history of everything that's happened across those channels and bring that in.
Yeah, and that's really important. I think nobody likes to have an IVR experience or a chat experience and then have to repeat everything back to the live agent once they get there. So excellent questions.
Another thing I'll step on, especially when you think about the IVR use case, when you're going through an IVR flow in Studio, you actually have the option of saving data as you're going through a flow. For example, when we're dealing with our healthcare system, that's one of the things they do. They build out something based on, okay, what type of problem are you having? Maybe what is a reference ticket you have for that? And as we collect that information, we're gathering all that information to pass that into Flex. So when the agent does get it, they have the full context of everything that the user has selected before then.
That's awesome. Well, Sujith, thank you for your questions. And before Trevor wraps us up here, I just want to see if anybody else had any questions. You can chat, raise your hand, or got a small group here for this kind of niche topics. If anybody just wants to unmute and ask, feel free to. Otherwise, we'll, Trevor can wrap it up here for us.
Yeah, and also just wanted to reiterate that we were recording this. If anybody wants to ask anything offline, we can stop recording. Just raise your hand or say something in the chat, and I can address that. You can also email us at hello@terazo.com, and we'll be happy to talk through any questions you have, or if you need any more information about what we do. Yeah, anybody else have any questions? Sujith actually had one more. He was asking, does Flex publish operational metrics data?
Okay, so Sujith, I think what you're talking about is like, how does the Flex report happen? So Flex in real time has operational data it presents along the lines of who are the agents you have online, what are they doing? Are they on calls and in chats? How many tasks they have? So you get a real-time view of what's going on in my contact center. Then additionally, they have a whole nother platform called Flex Insights that's used for more of that, that historical reporting. So you think about things like, what is my contact center utilization? How many abandoned chats do I have? How many abandoned calls do I get? How many voicemails am I getting? And how many calls per day per agent? How long are they on a call? How long are they taking to wrap up calls? They really have this really nice deep insights package available as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for the great questions. And Chris and Miles, appreciate your insights on this. I know they've been helpful to a lot of people. And like I said, feel free to check out our Twilio landing page, Terazo.com/Twilio. We have a case study in there you can download to kind of see some of our work in action, and our contact information is on there as well. This recording will also be posted to our YouTube channel, so I'll send out an email with a link to that as well, and we'll have it available on our website archive where you can see some of our past webinars too. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate you joining us, and we'll catch you for our next webinar.
Thank you.